Good day to all newcomers and already ardent fans of the Mew Online universe. Mew Bless is speaking, one of the most experienced, popular and stable projects of the Mew Online universe. In the past, we already have a superficial guide to Endless Tower, but recently, playing on our server, I increasingly began to encounter questions from new players about how to pass this event, and decided that it will be useful to shoot in more detail and help new players optimize such an important event as Endless Tower, and understand what each class should do. I'll quickly explain the event again. To fully participate in the event, you need a party of 5 different classes, each of which is simply necessary for the successful and highly quality passage of the Endless Tower. Your task is to go through wave after wave, gaining increasing experience and stronger monsters with each wave. So what's the point me even going to some event if I can stand on the top spot AFK and do my own thing? The thing is that for completing this event you also get Endless Tower points, which you can exchange for various prizes, namely Violet Mystery Box for 1.5k, Pink Mystery Box for 2k, Green Ribbon Box for 4k, Blue Ribbon Box for 8k, Green Mystery Box for 15k, Shard of Condor X10 for 20k and Flame of Condor for 60k. As we understand, the most important thing for us is Shards and Flame, which we can take after we buy each box before them once. That is first Violet, then Pink and so on, one time each. But that's not all. If we are talking about experience, then the Infinite Tower has the biggest one, especially starting from the 300th waves and above. The experience gained for killing monsters is increased by 4 times, and you can visit the tower no more than twice in a day. By going through the waves well and far, you will provide yourself with an excellent advantage over your opponents in leveling up, or you will make your favorite tributes much faster in order to take expensive and rare flames. In addition, at this event you will encounter golden monsters that are still counted in your achievements, and here they can be successfully closed. These waves even can be specially slowed down in order to kill more golden monsters. These waves start from 50 waves, from 224 and from 473. So we gather a stable party of 5 different classes, go to the Arcania, buy a ticket, the leader of the assembled party activates the scroll and you go to the fight. Before going there, you need to know that you cannot bring HP potions there with you, and you also won't be able to repair your items. This information is especially useful for Dark Lords and Magic Gladiators. Their weapons break most often. Therefore, most often they take so-called change of weapons with them. Also, stats are given out there according to a different system, independent of your resets. Here, the most important aspect will be the number of your main quests and ET level. For each quest, a regular class gets 200 points, MG and Dark Lord gets 280 points. ET levels are given for participating in event, a form of your experience in it. For each level, you get 500 additional stats. We will talk with you in more detail about the roles of each, but now I will try to analyze the difficulties that you will expect. In Endless Tower, it's also called ET, the faster you clear the waves, the more waves you can skip, up to 20 waves at a time. In this regard, it is logical that you want to place your team at least in 4 corners of the event and try to clear weak monsters as quickly as possible to save time. And by the way, you are given only 30 minutes. So we're clearing all possible weak waves as quickly as possible and run into those that you cannot handle alone and start playing according to your strength. Someone will easily reach 300 waves alone, someone will stop at the very first ones, and this is normal. Everything has its time, so just adapt this information into your strength. As soon as we run into difficult waves for you, it is advisable to start collecting them. Most often waves are collected into 2 popular ways. Choose what you like the best. Your team scatters along the edges of the map, and at the moment the monsters appear, everyone gathers in the center of the arena, so that the monsters follow you. Or you assign a couple of classes to circle around you while the damage classes clean the monsters at once. Usually BK and the Sam collect the monsters. Not all monsters are equally successful in grouping. For example, monsters with range attack really don't like to collect, or monsters that does not attack that often, they also difficult to collect. So just try different ways. For those who might have a question about why they should be collected, I will answer. So you can better use your mass damage skills and hit as many targets as possible to pass waves faster, control it better, and reduce the radius of attacks of monsters. Thus, your support elf will be safe. After a certain number of waves, approximately from 20 to 50, you will meet bosses that are significantly stronger than others, and with each wave they will become even more terrible and even use mass attacks. So try to stick up with a good amount of health so as not to fall instantly from one attack. For example, the first bosses are waiting for you on the wave 20, 50, 107, 155 waves, and so on. Each time in chat you will have a notification that a fight with a boss awaits you, but these bosses are not scary. They are more likely a test of your strength, like items and reset. By the way, waves with bosses are key waves, they cannot be skipped. For example, if you will get 106 wave, then even if you quickly clear it, you will still get to the boss in the 106 wave. Keep this in mind. Starting from wave 194, adept mages will start appearing with the bosses and before them, who can freeze their enemies when attacking. They will be your main enemies for almost the entire event. If you fall into their trap and gather too many of these mages around you, you simply won't be able to move until you are killed. Most often players wait for these waves and try to form a group in one of the corners of the tower so as not to get surrounded by the monsters. A little advice: try not to move much and kill all the monsters closest to you, but first of all, mages, so you will not aggro a large number of them at once, and there will be a chance, even if you get frozen, to soon get out of it. You also can get unlucky, and most of the mages will appear right next to you, but here no one is immune. There will also be adept-like mages. You don't have to be afraid of necromancers, but they drain your mana, so keep that in mind. You also have two useful commands, such as /skip-wave and /stock. The first one allows you to skip waves once per AT, as if you cleaned it yourself. But you should have no more than 5 monsters left. It doesn't seem very good, but sometimes it helps a lot. I advise you to use it wisely. Well, stock is anti-bug system. If something breaks, monsters are not visible and so on. Speaking of invisible monsters, some players sometimes have bosses or monsters disappear and they really are not visible. Here's a tip for you. Try to move to the supposedly opposite corner from the invisible boss and press the O key to open the menu. Reduce your view range scale to a minimum, namely 2 cubes, and run up to the boss. If you see him, you can return the scale to a position convenient for you. Let me now try to briefly tell you about the tasks of each class. The main damage dealing character, as almost everywhere, is Dark Lord. He brings the main DPS of the team, kills bosses and clears most of the monsters with his fire scream. Also in the later stages, when the golden clock is already appeared, the Dark Lord is an excellent tank of monsters, taking the lion's share of damage from monsters on himself, covering allies. You will have a choice to go in the Ancient set to kill monsters and bosses faster, such as for example Darkside Adamantine, or to go in the Excellent set to be stronger and a little bit more confident, but slower to pass the waves, taking more damage on yourself. Personally, I advise you to go to the Excellent set first, because if you have the first clock, then you simply won't be having enough damage absorbed and you can die too easily. And after receiving the golden cape, you can experiment. But here, everything depends on the number of your stats, quality of your set, achievements, and so on. Look up your strength. In addition, as soon as the waves are already stronger and you need to collect the waves, ask the MG to cut off the bosses for you and start with him. Just try to simultaneously hit the boss and the monsters, while your team cleans the rest. So with the stats, almost everything is like in PvP, but usually there are significantly more of the stats when there are more of 300 quests, of course. Usually Dark Lords make mistake of throwing agility more than 15-16k. This makes no sense since you will not see an actual increase in attack speed, because at such a speed everything starts to rest on the animation of attack. You can somehow make an experiment and you will see that the optimal speed value is about 1k and 4,500, which is approximately equal to 14.5k agility. Also, Dark Lord gets too little defense increase from agility, and these stats are better spent on increasing the amount of health to become more durable. We also try to keep energy closer to the maximum, and if there are enough of stats, then do it maximum. This is necessary in order to increase your skill damage, and then with the elf buff you will receive more profit. With a limited number of stats, throw your strength to wear your weapons and armor and distribute the rest into vitality. On higher waves, bosses hit very painfully, even on very well itemized players, and you will need a good amount of health. Let's give an example. If I will have enough stats to fill the energy to the end, invest 14.5k agility, and I will have 20,000 stats left, I will distribute 9,000 into strength so that Atlantis Scepter will work, and I will send the rest into vitality, which is still not enough, but already enough to try to go through more than 300 waves. When there are so many stats that I can fulfill the strength and energy to the maximum, then I have a choice whether I increase my health or I add more stats to command and increase the critical damage of my party. If you ask me, I will say that I feel much safer for me to bring vitality to the maximum than to add a little bit more damage to myself. Too many times a large amount of health saved me and my team from death in a mage freeze. And of course the most basic advice: collect secondary weapons with the plus rate option to use them in the starting waves, and your main, the strongest one, at the end. Do not forget you cannot repair items during event. Oh yeah, and also before talking about other classes, especially BK, especially about them, do not stand in front fire scream. No matter how much you want it, Dark Lord does the main DPS in the game. Let him hit. Let's talk about MG. I would like to say that MG is one of the most important classes in ET, but here all classes play a very important role. MG is irreplaceable in the ET due to his ability to cut off the armor of the enemies by Fire Slash. Without it, you simply will not be able to penetrate most of the monsters in this event. Without this so-called cut, Dark Lord hits 900 damage, and with it 900,000 damage. The role of MG is quite simple. He jumps on the monsters using Spiral Slash, quickly moving and cutting off the armor of monsters so that Dark Lord in turn cleans them. And also MG can support with damage to monsters. Often happens, Dark Lord is frozen by mages and MG managed to kill them at a decent distance and save the situation. MG does not really have a choice of a set. Your choice in 90% of cases is excellent set, and be sure to carry a shield for the late stages. Yeah, you can try to risk it and try to do more damage with an ancient set to eventually get through some 425 wave, for example, but the risk of the falling from the one hit of bosses will be very high. Let me remind you that you will have to get close to the monsters to cut off their armor, so you will often get punched into the face by them. You just need to be tanky so as not to cause many problems for your team. Dying or taking a lot of damage will simply slow down the event. So we collect an excellent set with DD plus HP, take a shield and a lot of swords with us, since they will also often break. You can get yourself two-handed swords, since if you put on two one-handed swords at once, they will break together. And save the shield for the late waves, where they already starting to hit you like a truck. It will help you feel more comfortable and confident. Don't forget, after cutting the monster, jump away from Dark Lord's attacks. At the event, you can jump on your allies by holding the control button to be mobile. We collected monsters, cut, jumped back, and hold power slash on monsters, helping to kill them faster. In terms of the stats, everything is quite simple here. Try to be tanky mainly, keep agility and vitality at the same level, somewhere 30% agility, 30% vitality, and 20% strength and energy. If you really want to, you can put a little bit more in strength, but there can be a shortage of mana, and you will have to pick up mana potions, which your soul master may not like. As soon as there are more quests and ET level rises, then you will have enough stats for both damage and defense, which will help you not to think about the distribution of stats in such detail. So let's talk about the BKs. The first and the most important task is not to stand in front of Fire Scream. The task of BK will be to give a good inner buff and maintain it constantly for the team, and use the most OP skill in the game, Destruction skill. As soon as waves are already stronger and you start collecting them, and also as soon as you start encountering mages, you simply need to freeze all nearby monsters. The fact is that with such a freeze, monsters need 3 times more time to animate movements, which forces them to hit much less often. As a result, you and your team receive less damage, items break more slowly, and in case of the mages, you have much higher chances of not being frozen. At first, it will seem that your role is insignificant, but in fact, it's huge, bro. The right BK keeps all key monsters frozen, and from that, you will go much further. And of course, a good inner buff will not allow your allies to fall in one hit. Try to freeze monsters standing behind the DL, so as not to interfere with him, and constantly update the buff. With items, everything is simple for you. You will almost always be in excellent set and with a shield. And only in the deepest of the late game you will be able to inflict good supporting damage. By the deep late game I mean almost completely closed quests, more than 100 achievements, strong wings, demon, and so on. Then your damage will be very significant, but until then your task is to live, freeze and give a good buff. Stats. It is advisable to maximize vitality for you to enhance your buff. At first, strength is only needed to carry items, while agility and energy are purely symbolic, 5-10,000. In the late stage, you will be able to add much more to strength, for example 19k, 23k agility, 25k vitality and 70-90k energy. But most importantly, do not stand in front of Fire Scream of Dark Lord. So let's move on to Soul Master. With the mage, everything is simple here. Your task is almost entirely supportive, since the evil spirit does not work here. Be sure to maintain a mana shield on your allies so they won't die. Live longer and try to poison monsters with DK, and try to help BK to freeze all monsters, especially mages. On bosses, be sure to use DK to successfully poison him and deal damage from his current health. And when the boss is around 25% of HP left, start hitting with the flame skill, since it deals more DPS, and poison, as I already said, deals damage from the enemy's current health. You always need an excellent set to survive, and maybe only in the deep late game you can put on some kind of Icor set. About stats. We try not to spare stat points on vitality and agility, because at the first your task is to give debuffs to monsters and buff your allies to live longer. When there are more stats, achievements and so on, you, like other classes, will be able to do more basic damage, and perhaps it will become more interesting for you. And Elf. Your main task is to find top elven staff, set plus DD plus mana, and rings also with mana, and constantly keep your allies alive. Update buffs on them and use the healing skill. You can press F7 without pointing at anyone, and the elf himself will heal allies depending on their amount of health. Be sure to fill energy to the maximum. Strength for wearing items, agility at the beginning is purely symbolic too, 3-4k. and as much vitality as possible, from which you get both protection and more health on our server. Your task is to live as long as possible and stay away from strong monsters. Also, at the beginning, when you are still weak, summoned monsters such as Bali and Soldier are often used, and they try to set strong bosses on them so that you can hit them from the distance. So you can go through the waves a little further than your opponents at the start of the servers. Everything is simple here. The main thing is to position yourself correctly. And the last piece of advice for the end. After the Queen of Damned boss, from wave 425, you will come across Ice Walker and Mammoth. These Ice Walkers all freeze you when they attack you, so be careful there. And try to use skip wave command to 435 wave. It will be much easier there, so you can even collect them together. Guys, I hope we were able to help you with something. Dare and conquer the peaks of the Endless Tower. Supplement the guide in the comments, subscribe, and play with us in Mew Bless Online.